Number 10. Mermaid Chica. I don't think we really needed like a Chica mermaid, and yet that's something we got. Mermaid Chica appears in Security Breach, and she's actually originally from Help Wanted. She was more creepy looking there actually, which is kinda awkward in its own way. But in Security Breach, Glamrock Mermaid Chica only appears as a cutout, and she is looking weirdly attractive and flirty? I don't know if it's just me seeing that, but her design has definitely been made less creepy and more cute at the very least. This version of Chica also doesn't have a cupcake, but instead has an oyster to supplant her little animatronic cupcake sidekick. And if you didn't already know, we have a new channel that you need to check out. It's the next biggest thing, and you'll want to be one of the first 100,000 subscribers, trust me. It's Most Amazing Top 10 Anime. Press pause, go sub, then come back and join me as we count down. Number 9. Getting the Fazwatch. Another strange thing in the world is when you as Gregory berate Glamrock Freddy for talking so loudly. One, it's pretty awkward how inherently rude Gregory seems here and just in general. Freddy only seems to want to help, but Gregory constantly criticizes him for doing even that, complaining that the booming volume of his voice could all too easily attract the security guard Vanessa, who Gregory does not trust and doesn't want to find him, which kinda also seems suspicious. What are you hiding, Gregory? Why don't you want security to find you? But the other weird thing is that before this, you were in Freddy's chest cavity, and in order for him to communicate with you without being outright heard, he decides to give you a Fazwatch. Now where does he keep said Fazwatch? Well, also in his chest cavity, which implies that during the time that you were in there before, you were actually sharing that very small space with a crank and a gift box, which is how you get the Fazwatch. Even though when you look in to take that Fazwatch, it looks like this device takes up the entire space of Freddy's chest cavity. So how is that possible? Or does he just make Fazwatches appear out of thin air? I don't know. Physics. Number 8. Climbing inside Freddy. Another weird part of this entire thing, despite it being super cool as well, is actually climbing inside Freddy. That is because it definitely seems like you would not be able to fit inside his chest cavity, even minus, like I said, the crank and the gift box, which are removed after you get the Fazwatch from Freddy. Still, even with that space cleared, it just looks way too small for how big the character is supposed to be. It kind of makes me think they should have designed Glamrock Freddy to just be like basically a giant booming character. He's already pretty giant, but I just feel like he needs to be even larger, so the scaling would work better in your mind. But also, then he'd probably be like way more intimidating and kind of scary, and they probably wanted to make sure he stayed, you know, kind of like approachable and friendly looking, since he's supposed to be kind of like your pal in the game. So I get it, but it still is super awkward because it doesn't feel like it makes any spatially logical sense for at least enough for this to even be possible.
And it's 7. Midnight Motorist. While the gameplay of Midnight Motorist itself is pretty simple, the intrigue comes from the hidden lore that we get from this game, all of which is fairly well known to my knowledge. I'm pretty sure everyone knows it, actually. You know how it's called later that night in the files, and the secret area at the bottom that leads to the whole other section with the Mustard Man and whatnot? Okay, good, glad we're caught up. So, imagine that whole Mustard Man minigame section as a VHS tape. That would be pretty damn freaky, right? I mean, like, especially given the location and the fact that this is a house alone in a clearing in the woods, okay? Very Blair Witch Until Dawn kind of location there, alright? And even if you want to just use the gameplay of the minigame itself, that's still pretty terrifying. And you know what? Maybe even more so. I've said this multiple times, but the idea that anyone we pass on the street could have just walked away from a gruesome murder is something that is, I think, at least, is one of the scariest realities we all face. Like, I've made jokes like you're only alive because every human you've seen has chosen not to kill you, and in reality that has way more truth to it than you would think. And this VHS tape would be like any other. But considering how later that night is commonly seen as later in the night William killed Charlotte, I think the implications of it would be pretty horrifying. And at 6, Security Breach. All of it. Considering how there are cameras all over the Pizzaplex that we are able to tap into somehow using our Fazwatch, I think it's fairly safe to say that this would be a realistic idea. And honestly, I think all the Security Breach moments could work as a tape. I mean, like, come on, okay? Especially when Vanny distorts the camera around her and makes herself invisible to Freddy, okay? An invisible psycho bunny out for blood, chasing a kid around a giant Chuck E. Cheese mall for 6 hours? Tell me that doesn't already sound like a horror movie. Especially when you throw in like the low quality video that is associated with old security cameras and VHS tapes, okay? Slap on top of that some well-placed static at intense moments, and boom, you have yourself the next Paranormal Activity series. I just think that the concept of security breach as a whole would do well with this style of video. But if you want me to be more specific, give me a minute and I will be. And at 4, Security Puppet. Another mini game from FNAF 6 that I think would make an incredible video, Security Puppet. And I mean like the whole finding Charlotte dead outside in the rain thing, not the whole do nothing until the final round because the green bracelet is stuck outside thing, okay? Because genuinely seeing this from the puppet's POV with like the green bracelet being highlighted and maybe even the only thing that is actually in color on the screen would make this so much more impactful, okay? The pain that the viewer would feel as we slowly crawl out to her bleeding body would be insane. And imagining like the sound effects of like faint screaming or like crying from Henry that we could also have in the background that gets slightly louder as we crawl, I'm actually getting chills right now. It doesn't even need to actually look realistic. You could do this in Source Filmmaker, and as long as the atmosphere is right and you have the sounds right and whatnot, it would be absolutely horrifying. Okay, I would hear those screams as I'm falling asleep, and I'd probably never be able to sleep again. Just saying.
Number 3, Vanny Defeated. The ending where you can just choose to go for Vanny is like a weird one. Especially as it starts off with Freddy, as you finally have the option to leave the Pizzaplex, asking you if you want to stay, leave, or you can also choose Vanny. The choice is yours. Will you stay or go, Gregory? Vanny. What a strange response even. Vanny. If you choose Vanny as a bizarre answer to a question that had nothing to do with her really, then you will go after Vanny, attempting to get her where her home base is in the game at Phaser Blaster. Once there is no way to play through this apprehension really. It kinda just happens, with you not really getting much of a say in how it plays out. You're more a witness than an active participant, I would say. Freddy is immediately taken off the board, and then you're forced to pursue Vanny and order her loyal animatronics to turn on her, dismantling her to defeat her. What is so messed up about that? Well, you're dismantling her, and she's not an animatronic. She's like a flesh and blood person. So that's pretty messed up. Dismantling. Number 2, comic book endings. One of the weird things about Security Breach in general is the endings that we get where we don't even really get complete like animations or cinematics. Instead we get some like moving comic book pages. It just seems weird and awkward that the rest of the game is like really polished, and yet they decided to go with this for all of the endings. Like you don't even really get to play through them, even though they seem to have parts to them in terms of the story that seem like they would actually be kind of fun to play. I'm not sure if this is just a weird style choice or if this was just because, you know, they didn't want to spend the time or money incorporating the ending scenes into the same style of animation and gameplay as the rest of the game, and or making them like, you know, just more playable in general, as opposed to something that you just kind of watch happen in a comic book form and then you're like, well, I guess that's the ending. Cool. Number 1, the elevator. Probably one of the most awkward parts of Security Breach is the elevator interludes. When you have to get in the elevator with Freddy and you're just kinda there for a while. Especially because as soon as you're in close quarters, it becomes clear how weird and freaky Freddy is just in general. As soon as you're forced to focus on him, you'll notice how he creepily just like stares at you, almost obsessively. And because you're in close quarters, Glamrock Freddy will continuously kinda just open and close his chest cavity, preparing or like offering for you to like jump inside it. It seems really sinister, even though he's your friend and you know Freddy wouldn't harm you, but you can't help but question this odd behavior, or at least you're definitely freaked out by it. It's just a weird time. I feel like when I'm in the elevator, I'm like, just don't look. Just don't look at Freddy. Look anywhere else.
In at 10, paint cans. After starting the game and getting to the free roam section of Security Breach where you have the tutorial for distracting animatronics, I just want to mention how goddamn lucky that is, okay? Like, one of the animatronics that you're going to need to avoid, no matter how damn fine she is, you need to avoid her, is literally eating garbage right in your way. But somehow, there's also a stack of paint cans randomly on a random cart in the middle of the hall in front of you. The cart is also for some reason blocking the hall, which I'm sure multiple employees love having to take the long way around, but it's fine that it's blocking the way because you can knock over these convenient and empty paint cans so that Chica will come and investigate it. I'd say her taking the way that she does is also lucky. However, this is like one of the only times where pathing makes sense since she's right next to the door that she ends up using, and I think that any other person in this situation would have done the same thing. However, one thing that I don't understand is in 9, inconvenient exit. During the so-called interrogation and torture scene in Parts and Service, from what I've been seeing YouTube videos titled online, Vanessa is questioning Freddy about Gregory and accusing him of helping Gregory, which I mean is true, but she shouldn't have to actually accuse him of that. More on that later. But after telling him that she's gonna leave him down there until his casing can be put on a new endo, which doesn't really make sense if the coating is the issue and not the endoskeleton, like, still, why would you leave to go to Rockstar Row through Roxy's lift when you could easily have just turned around to come our way and headed into the main atrium? That's where Gregory is for the majority of the game. That's where all the animatronics have been spotting him, and it would make more sense to go there than to Rockstar Row, where maybe he was seen twice at this point. I don't know, it seems weird to me, but the reason that this is lucky is because had she chosen to go the more logical route, which would have been towards us, she would have walked through the doors we were hiding behind, and it's not like we have much room to hide around them, okay? The walls on either side of this door are made of glass. She would see us run into the charging station or wherever else we went. So yeah, her choosing to exit in the most inconvenient way to her actually ends up helping us out. And at 8, Freddy. Just everything that Gregory does with Freddy seems to work out eventually, even if not at first. Look at what he does before the doors actually close the first time. He sends us to get a pass in order to free him from the green room, and then everything seems to be going well. But then for some random reason, without ever mentioning this before, he tells us that he senses that we are broken and that he needs to bring us to a medical tent so that he can fix us up. Whether this was meant to be a nod to Crying Child or not in this case doesn't matter. Point is here that it didn't do anything, okay? We get a run-in with Vanessa that later turns into a TikTok meme, but other than that, we stay the same, okay? We don't get healed, we don't get a band-aid because we could have had the one that's on his character from the start, and we get in that booth, instantly turn around to watch the Vanessa and Freddy scene, and then after that, we leave instantly, and Freddy never mentions how we're still broken. And being broken, in this case, never seems to come up again or cause us any issues, especially since now with that little pit stop, even if you go full steam ahead, you can't make it out of the front doors in time. That one little interaction is the 30 seconds that we needed in order to escape out the front doors, but thanks to Freddy, we didn't make it. But he still doesn't abandon us. He just tries to help. I mean, I don't know, it's off, okay? And if Freddy is evil, him not revealing it there and then is definitely lucky as hell.
Number 7, Freddy teleporting. This was something that was later fixed in the game, but initially it was kind of like a glitch, or really just a choice in terms of the game's programming that was really creepy. Originally, when you summoned Glamrock Freddy, he would just appear near you. He wouldn't have to run over from where he was previously, but instead would be able to just like kind of shortcut to where you were by seemingly teleporting to your side as Gregory in the game, usually appearing behind you so that it didn't seem like he necessarily teleported. It would be like, no one's there, there's Freddy. So a little weird. This wasn't in canon teleporting, at least I don't think it was intended to be that way anyways. Just a choice made by the game designers on how Freddy would appear near you when you called him and you needed him. Later on, this was patched and changed so that when Freddy came, you could always pretty much see him running up as opposed to sneaking up behind you, which admittedly was a little creepy and awkward, but was maybe a bit more convenient too. Also, I don't even know if it was less creepy and awkward than Freddy like charging towards you, which is also kind of scary, admittedly. Number 6, having a crush on Chica. Obviously, we all have a crush on Chica. There's nothing awkward about that, right? But there is something really awkward about how much Gregory seems to enjoy doing harm to animatronics. That for sure is awkward. Case in point, when we are forced as Gregory to get Chica into the trash compactor so we can literally have a crush on her by crushing her. Not only do you as Gregory turn on the trash compactor with Chica in it either, but you are also forced to literally push her into it and then watch as she's crushed right before your eyes. Though really, you'd think backing up here would make more sense. As a result of staying there to watch, you actually end up being dragged down into the garbage chute, and all because Gregory seems to be more obsessed with watching Chica like get crushed up close after pushing her in than his own safety. which is also in itself pretty awkward and disturbing. Like, I love how Gregory pushes her and then he's just like, yes, yes, be destroyed. Gregory is definitely gonna grow up to be an interesting adult. Number 5, taking Roxy's eyes. It doesn't end with crushing Chica. It really only continues to get worse from there. Although I guess if, like me, Chica is one of your favorite animatronics, then it already starts out pretty bad. I don't know about you, but I really didn't want to crush Chica. With Roxy, at least for many of us, she's kind of like one of the most annoying characters in this game. Although, of course, if there are any major Roxy fans out there, please let me know in the comments. If you actually happen to like Roxy, that's cool too. If you don't find her annoying, that's fine, but she kinda annoying. With Roxy though, we literally need to take her eyes out of her head, which is, well, there's no other way to say it, it's pretty gruesome. And once again, Gregory does this all by himself, which is disturbing. Awkward and disturbing. I mean, we don't see it, but we hear it. We know what's happening. Number 4, confessing to Freddy. Another bizarre thing that happens in the game happens as the result of you as Gregory stealing all the animatronics parts to, you know, upgrade Freddy with. You basically have to confess to Glamrock Freddy at one point that yes, you stole these pieces from the bodies of his friends. Basically, dismembering and mutilating them. Which, yeah, it doesn't sound too good, does it? It's already awkward enough to have to do this in-game and watch as Gregory does so almost with seeming delight. But then to hear how casually Gregory plays off, you know, sharing where these pieces came from, and to hear Freddy be so sad about it, oh boy, it's an awkward conversation to listen in on, never mind technically be a part of. Freddy's like, my friends, and you're like, well, you know how it is. Sometimes I gotta destroy your friends, Freddy, just don't worry about it. I'll be your friend. I'll be your friend.
Getting close to the ending at number 3, fire. Alright, so during the true ending, otherwise known as the Afton ending or the Burn Trap ending or whatever you want to call it ending, we have to fend off Burn Trap's attempts to take control over Freddy by setting him on fire using what I'm guessing are the mechanisms that Henry used to set fire to the FNAF 6 location. However, I mean, it's pretty convenient how we fall into the room that we need to in this case, with monitors set up connected to the cameras in the various rooms that Burn Trap enters exclusively, with buttons that light the fires in those various rooms that correspond with the monitor, despite it being far more convenient for Henry to light everything at the same time with one button. Think about it, okay? How are these working still? It's clearly been a while, okay? Based on some comments, apparently the Pizzaplex has been open for at least 4 years, which I don't know if it's accurate, but if it is, these cameras and old computers are still working 4 years after being set on fire. That was enough to ruin the building. Not to mention a sinkhole that had to open up underneath it since we have to travel down an elevator to get there, and like, how is it working after all of that? And if you say that it was Vanny, why make sure the fire systems are still working and then set them to be on separate buttons, okay? Plus, now, these computer monitors are literal dinosaurs. How did they work before the fire, let alone after? Yeah. And ultimately, in number 2, Boy Genius. The absolute mountain of knowledge that this kid has exceeds my own, okay? This kid is the size of a 4-year-old. He can fit inside Freddy, baby strollers, like popcorn kind of vending cart things that you can find around the Pizzaplex, and various other small areas. He's too small to drive one of the go-karts alone and has to get one of his, like, the instructor bot things, but he knows how to restart generators, operate a trash compactor. He's strong enough to restart generators, and he's also capable of driving a car, as well as identifying the car battery, connecting jumper cables on a car battery properly, and then using those to fix Freddy's recharging issue, okay? How does this make any sense? And how do they solve that issue in literally any other ending, okay? Because Freddy is still going to need to recharge every hour, supposedly, or at least he says that he does. I don't really believe that that's a story for another day. But like, how does this happen? Okay, how do they solve that issue? This kid knows more words than I do, but is somehow the size of a 4-year-old. Maybe even smaller, okay? It makes absolutely no sense. And this kid's weird superpower is what makes this game so confusing. It really only makes sense if he's a robot that that's supposed to mimic a toddler who's been operational for decades and has been learning the whole time, okay? Or that Security Breach is really just a cleverly skinned Jimmy Neutron fan game, okay? Which one is more likely here? And finally, in at number 1, Free Roam Freddy. We've talked a lot about the parts and service section, okay? Because Gregory just seems to have gotten extremely lucky at multiple points in this chapter of the game, one after the other. However, the luckiest, I think, comes from after Vanessa leaves Freddy in parts and service. She says that it's so that his casing can be put on a new endo after either corporate gives the green light or they have someone on the clock who can actually just remove it and put it on someone else. But she doesn't seem to be suspicious that he's walking around Rockstar Row literally within like maybe 3 minutes if you've played the section before and don't mess up the memory game, okay? Like, who would have repaired him if not Gregory? There is literally no other living human in the Pizzaplex at this point, and the whole containment cylinder thing is to protect human beings. There are no staff bots in parts and service, and the reason you had to leave him there was because nobody else is working since it's after midnight. Why would Vanessa be so chill about Freddy walking around after that? I mean, like, she literally left him with his head removed, and if she assumed that somehow he did it himself, why wouldn't she then confine him to his room if he's that suspicious? Especially after just accusing him of helping to protect Gregory. It was something that confused me so much in my first playthrough, so I figured that Vanessa would pull us out of Freddy if we got too close. But I walked up to her to test it, and nothing. It would have been easy to make just a little modification to her code for this part of the game and make her actually be like, why are you here? Rip out Freddy. Or rip out Gregory, not Freddy. But like, come on, you could have made Vanessa a little bit more dangerous at this point, but no, okay? Gregory venting certainly isn't the only thing that's sus about this game. Let me just say that. And it's at hints. Once we started looking for lore hints and clues in more than just the games, we knew that we were going to be in for some extreme buffoonery with this series. I mean, like, looking in the game files is one thing, okay? People do that all the time, especially for popular games. But once we had to start looking in the source code for Scott's different websites, and then everything that followed that, we knew that there was nowhere safe from his tricks. We learned multiple things thanks to the fast facts found in FNAF AR's files. We know that after Sister Location Baby gets into a fight with the rest of Ennard and gets kicked off the island because of the source code. We got so many 8s and 7s before the release of FNAF 4 that we found a real-life pizza place on Google Maps, and we were looking so deep we ended up finding the original names to files to find the name of Vanny before it was even released. So yeah, needless to say, it's certainly been a wild ride since we saw those 8s and 7s in the source code, and then it only got more intense. Can't wait to see where this series goes with the hints next. Oh, probably just scrolling them on the inside of my eyelids. In 9, hiding spot. How the absolute living hell did anyone end up getting away with this? Like, the smell of rotting bodies inside of animatronics would ruin the atmosphere. The heat of the animatronics moving as well, that would just speed up the decomposition, and the animatronics are in front of people every single day. And they even started complaining that the animatronics were leaking blood and mucus and were, quote, smelling like death. If this was real, and William getting away with this wasn't important for the plot of life, he would have been cut instantly. Like, oh, we never found the bodies of these kids. How about we look in these leaking animatronics? Because, you know, they're leaking blood and mucus and smelling like death. Oh, wow, look at that. There's bodies here. We found those missing kids. Afton, you're under arrest. Boom. Like, instantly. I don't get how this wasn't an open and shut case. Like, straight up. He was so goddamn stupid. Like, he shouldn't have made it past the first game. His plan is a whole dumpster fire of bad ideas. But the entirety of the series would be different had he not hid the bodies in the animatronics. So, well played, I guess, William. And at 8, betrayal. Top 10 worst anime betrayals, but it's FNAF. In Sister Location, we thought we finally had a nice animatronic. The first nice one. Like basically a prototype of Glamrock Freddy. Baby was giving us tips on how to survive, she helped us get through Belora's gallery, she really seemed like she wanted us to live. But then, what do we get for trusting her? Scooped and stuffed just like a Thanksgiving turkey. Sounds like my last relationship. That sounded weird. That's not what I meant. I didn't mean that. I meant, like, that's what we get for trusting her. This was probably one of the most brutal things to happen to a character in the entirety of the series. And it's all because we trusted Baby. Okay, she made us feel safe, gave us confidence, prevented us from getting killed, only to use our body as a skin suit and then fill us full of Ennard's animatronic parts, and then also just leave Ennard not even a game later. Okay, this is why I don't trust Glamrock Freddy. Baby is legit one of the reasons that I have trust issues now, and that's saying something. Like, holy damn. I could have sworn Glamrock Freddy was going to do the exact same thing. Like, lead us down to Afton, then pull a psych. I've been working for this dickbag of a Mother Hubbard this whole time. Time to die. Ha ha! But he didn't. However, thanks to Baby, I still think that he's going to do the long con and that he's going to betray us in the next game. And without that, then we wouldn't have thought that McMichael is a robot and then the whole there's two purple guys now. Okay, it was an important moment, okay? In at 6, Disassemble. In the Phaser Blast ending, the one where, you push the button instead of playing Princess Quest 3, Gregory actually ends up ordering the robots to disassemble Vanny. Gregory being willing to kill Vanny here is pretty messed up. However, it's lucky that these staff bots even understood that command. Okay, Vanny is a human, not something that's typically seen as capable of disassembly, okay? When a serial killer hacks up a body, okay, the police don't say that the victim was disassembled, they say they were dismembered, okay? This guy kills Vanny and then only gets emotional when he has to go talk to a destroyed Freddy. Okay, like, dude, okay, Vanny is literally bleeding out next to you. We saw what happened to Freddy. Okay, that was the disassembly. So, yeah, couldn't you just have said, like, stop or restrain Vanny? Particularly stop, okay? You didn't have to say freaking disassemble. I get that she said that about Freddy and it was fresh in your mind, but dude, okay? You're not panicking about literally anything else. And if the robots hadn't understood that command because, humans aren't disassembled, then it would have caused you a hell of a lot of pain. It worked on Freddy because robots can be disassembled because they get assembled in the first place. But now I am definitely going to start calling pregnancy assembling a human now, so that's fun. Thanks for that. Halfway through into number 5, Not a Snitch. Okay, I don't know how Gregory survived security breach in general, alright? There were plenty of times that this kid could have got. Particularly though when Freddy gets grabbed by the Moondrop animatronic right outside parts of service. You're telling me that Moondrop, the daycare attendant, the guy who has been chasing us every hour on the hour, told Vanessa that Freddy was in the parts and service room, but didn't mention that we were in the recharge station right next to it? He knew we were there. He waved at us while taking Freddy away. And then Vanessa talks to Freddy as if she doesn't know that we're listening in. It's almost like they're putting on a show. Like, sure, the daycare attendant isn't able to get us while we're in a recharge station, but we clearly aren't visible to him. He waved. So why wouldn't he also inform Vanessa about a kid in the recharge station while also saying, oh yeah, and I got Freddy? Okay, and if he did, why not bring that up when talking to Freddy instead of just asking him if he's helping us? Okay, it doesn't make sense. Daycare attendant not ratting on us is definitely a lucky moment, okay? I guess maybe he knows that snitches get stitches and that Gregory will tear him limb from limb with a smile on his face if he did, so maybe that's how it works. In at 4, Destruction. Speaking of tearing animatronics limb from limb, isn't it convenient that there is a way to break every other animatronic that isn't Freddy, and then that leaves the animatronic broken in the right way to remove whatever aspect that you actually needed to upgrade Freddy? Hell yeah it is. It's so lucky that there is somehow a way to break each of the animatronics in the perfect amount for the animatronics as well, okay? And it works the first time. And even with Chica, okay, we push her into a trash compactor and somehow don't get crushed ourselves, despite her grabbing onto our leg, okay? We only get pulled into another area that we can still get back to the Pizzaplex through instead of being pulled into the trash compactor and crushed. So yeah, needless to say that looking at it logically, it's extremely lucky that there is a way to destroy each of the evil animatronics in a way that allows us to access their specific upgrades. Even though we didn't need to crush the animatronics and instead it could have just chilled in Freddy's green room until 6 a.m. when the doors opened. So yeah, lucky us! And ultimately in at number 2, FNAF 4. Not only is the spring locking important, and on top of embarrassing, but the next game, FNAF 4, is one of the most pivotal moments in the series. After what Scott intended to be the original end to the series after 3 games, he came out with a 4th after the community was disappointed with the Springtrap jump scare. So lo and behold, we get the Nightmare animatronics, and the story of Crying Child, who still doesn't have an official name, since the N in Evan is a stretch and the whole Gregory thing is still up in the air. However, this kid really changed the way we looked at the series, from thinking that William was a grieving father to, after looking closely, that he instead designed these animatronics to kill, and the mysteries of this game. What's inside the box? Who's the one who says I will put you back together? And really, what does it mean? It's been like 6 years after the game's release, and we've still been unable to definitively answer those questions. And that's why the series has lived on for so long, okay? The amount of mystery and intrigue is just too much for us as humans to ignore. As humans, we want answers. It explains a lot about society. But let me tell you, those who don't worry about FNAF have it made. I guess ignorance is bliss. They don't have to do this. And finally, into number 1, live stream. After MatPat's big FNAF 4 theory relating to dream theory and how the entire series might be a dream, something later disproven by Scott, so thank God for that, there was still a series of cryptic messages that made us think a whole load of crazy for a while. And you know what? Maybe we were right at the time, but as the series grows, so does the story. It's like a living organism adapting to changes in its environment. Why would Toy Chica be missing her beak? And 4 games, 1 story could have made sense back then, but now we're not entirely sure if they have an impact anymore, since it's definitely more than 4 games. At the time, we thought that this meant that Crying Child was Michael Afton, something that honestly kind of made sense, in the weird FNAF way of making sense. But now, we've decided that it's not the case, and honestly, I think that this is the way the series will stay. Not about the Mike thing per se, but specifically that we will never know what's really going on, and that the story will instead be what we as fans make it instead of what Scott might have originally intended. Sure, he can help gesture us in a better direction that would make more sense with what he wanted and what he has planned, but I don't think that we'll ever know what Scott originally thought the story of the series would be. Hence why when Dawko asked him which FNAF 3 ending was canon, Scott said he wouldn't answer. In its 7 true ending. The true ending of Security Breach is seemingly the scariest part of the game. This one is unlocked by finding the secret elevator in the section in Roxy's Raceway. It's down the stairs from where you find the test driver head. This requires your Freddy to have the Monty Claus and the Chica voice box, I guess. However, it is also possible that you can only get through it with the voice box if you like call Freddy to you. He can like appear on the other side of the gate and then smash through it because he's required to. But yeah, you have to do this after you stay to complete the game. You have to deal with a boss battle with 1 go, okay, without saving, so that's gonna be a pretty rough time since save states are disabled after you could have escaped. After making your way into Burntrap's area, Freddy will be taken over by Burntrap, and it's up to Gregory to defeat him using one of the 3 monitors and then pressing buttons to burn him. Players will also need to avoid the animatronic enemies that come for Gregory and use the doors to temporarily lock them out. When Springtrap is finally burnt for the final time, the blob, which was the whole tentacle monster thing, will attack him, making sure that he doesn't get free. At least, we hope that that's the case. Freddy and Gregory will be shown escaping and then sitting on a hill together, which is the first time a character has run away with an animatronic, and where an animatronic has not been a bad guy who ultimately betrays us in the end. So, yeah, that's significant, okay? Don't question me. In its 6th, the one you should not have killed. The introduction of the one you should not have killed is probably the most confusing character ever. While we have had more confusing moments, the argument over who the one you should not have killed, aka the vengeful spirit isn't over. But no matter if it's Cassidy or Crying Child, the vengeful spirit was introduced as an explanation as to why Afton always comes back. A spirit that was possessing him and keeping him alive, which I called. I called that Afton was still living in the Springtrap suit, but all of you didn't believe me. And here we are. He was alive in the suit. And even after that, for some reason, you don't believe that I'm right about Crying Child being the one you should not have killed instead of Cassidy, despite my over like 350 different videos on FNAF. Okay, I feel like I know enough about this series, especially with the calls that I've made in the past. Okay, I was 1 day off on the Security Breach release date, 1 day, and you still don't think I know enough about this series. Come on, people, come on, just accept me as your overlord and this would all be so much easier. Halfway through into number 5, Dream Theory. The actual concept of dream theory is nothing new to any series, really. The idea that everything we've seen could just be a dream is possible with any form of media. But when it comes to FNAF, this idea made a lot of people upset, and I guess that's understandable. With everything being a dream, it in essence makes the lore worthless. So the hours and hours people spent trying to work it out being pointless if it was true. However, if this was the intention, we never knew, since in FNAF 4's ending we see a locked box with the now infamous line of perhaps some things are best left forgotten for now. And that for now has been around 6 years. Currently, according to Scott, from what I've seen, nobody has actually solved FNAF 4 yet, but then again, I don't think Scott knows who we are, so maybe I have and he just doesn't know it. But with the game surrounding a kid in a coma who's experiencing nightmares after getting chomped on by a seriously overpowered animatronic jaw, I think us getting the idea that this could be indicating that everything is a dream is a little on par for what the actual course was at that point. We were so invested at this point that we actually started scanning the source code, and again, found a real world pizzeria thanks to the multiple 8s and 7s, and I still don't know if that was accidental or not. I don't think anyone does. I don't know if Scott actually knew about that or not. Maybe he was the one who put that on Google Maps. And at 4, soft reboot. The soft reboot the series is undergoing at the moment, and more so at the time that Help Wanted was released, was something that we had never seen before. Well, at least in the FNAF series. And seemingly started the trend of characters from games becoming sentient and trying to escape the confines of games and come into the real world. That, you know, we see play out through the FNAF games after Afton becomes sentient code. But even then, the next game seems to throw that idea away while we're keeping what happened there. Or at least in the mobile port canon with Princess Quest. It's a real issue, okay? The real issue comes from the next soft reboot they attempted to do in Security Breach again, with Afton now having a physical form. Again, his death being a mystery and the game setting up the next owner for wherever they want to go. And while I understand that, I wish you could have just like given it one path, you know, or like at least like just killed William off for us permanently. I'm still upset about that. Getting close to the end in number 3, first victim. They say that a killer's first victim is the most important, since it might indicate what really got them to start killing or other psychological clues that they can use to predict his next moves. But in the case of William Afton, his first victim was the daughter of his longtime business partner Henry, which is hella messed up because she was 3 at the time. And while we may have talked about how Henry dropped the ball before, this was the year that Afton's life started going downhill in the worst of ways. Cause like he started killing off kids, and then he sticks with that MO throughout the rest of the criminal career. Then like he also loses his kids after that. But the fact that his first victim was someone who trusted him, who didn't really suspect him of anything, even though her father did, is something that I fear. But ultimately, in number 2, baby. This guy is actually the luckiest motherfucker alive. This girl was killed by a robot her father made that was specifically designed to kill. She was then locked away in an underground storage unit where she was regularly shocked and tortured by scientists, technicians that William probably hired so that they could try and find out the answers to why she's possessed. She goes through all of this, is locked underground for like 45 years at least, and then goes on to try to make her father proud in FNAF 6. She literally says, quote, "I will make proud, daddy," while her father is literally in the building with her. Girl, this man is the reason you are dead. Literally, there is no debate about it here. This is 100% William's fault. And the fact that he didn't put a blacklist of people not to kill only makes this more on him. But you still want to make him proud? And finally, and at number 1, the Palladium rule. I will stand by this until the day I die. And you know what? I used to call it the Platinum rule, but now it's the Palladium rule because it's a meme and I love it. The most ridiculous but luckiest thing that has ever happened in FNAF was the fact that William Afton killed people in his own place of business and then didn't get caught. I don't know if this was always his intention, but like, who the absolute living hell would think that this is a good idea? Seriously, even if it's a TV show, okay, How I Met Your Mother does have some good lessons. One of those is Barney's Platinum rule, which is if you have to see the person every day because you work with them or they live in an apartment next door to you, okay, don't engage in some form of relationship, okay, because come a breakup, which is statistically probable, it just results in awkwardness and pain. And while this isn't the exact same thing, you are at this building all the time. Your name is a part of the company, so why would you think that this is a good idea? Literally go anywhere else, okay? You ended up even getting banned while there was an investigation underway. I don't get it. And at 10, the Bite of 83. The Bite of 83 is the inciting moment to FNAF 4. It's the reason the whole game is happening. Not the reason for the series as a whole, mind you, but considering how the main gameplay of this game is us having nightmare fever coma dreams, this bite is definitely an important one. And while yes, it's certainly disturbing to see on screen in 8-bit, I think it would be even worse to see it as a VHS tape. The realism that we would get from even like crappy footage is so bone-shaking that you can actually like feel as if you're in the situation. This whole genre of found footage really coming from the Blair Witch Project and its incredible marketing strategy. Like, I had a whole unit on marketing like this in college, okay? It's absolutely genius. And if that sort of style of cinematography was used to make like a whole FNAF movie, or even maybe just a couple of clips, we would all be sent screaming. And watching a kid get his skull crushed by an overpowered animatronic is definitely a shocking moment already. Also, did you know that only 17% of people who watch these videos are actually subscribed? You may not actually know that you're not subscribed, so be sure you check it. And if you aren't and you've watched this channel multiple times, click the button, okay? It makes me feel better about myself. And at 8, March of the Toreadors. If you're confused by this number, don't worry, I'm going to explain it real quick. March of the Toreadors is the name of the song that plays when you run out of power in FNAF. It's the song that plays leading up to Freddy's jump scare. It's also slowed down for the games, and it's a song released by Georges Bizet, released in 1875, and from my understanding, now in the public domain. And while that's interesting, I mainly use the name to illustrate the part of the game that I'm talking about. Having a tape or a Blair Witch style video of you running out of power would be absolutely terrifying, okay? I can imagine it. And if it was made in a realistic way instead of being something like FNAF VR or otherwise with just like some filters thrown on top of it, if it was actually real, it would be terrifying. Okay? That's the kind of thing that would give people nightmares, and actual nightmares, not like the ones that I have where I just wake up panicking, then I'm like, oh wait, no, like actually scary. And at 7, calling the cops. Let's look at this logically, alright? Henry knew what was going on with Afton, and then Afton had some shady scenarios cooking in his brain. So if he knew that this man was up to no good, and he was fearing for his daughter's safety, why didn't he make the call to the police and be like, hey man, so this William Afton guy is like thinking about killing kids, and probably is the one that's been killing the kids that you're looking for. Like, I mean, sure, maybe you didn't have proof, but you could have certainly tipped them off, and then they could have, you know, found the proof. Come on, they could at least keep a closer eye on him, but you didn't. And instead, you did a whole load of other that in reality didn't do anything to stop William. I mean, you did one thing that put him out of commission for like 30 years, but again, that was only 30 years. You could have stopped him. You could have actually stopped him in his tracks, but instead you chose to keep your mouth shut. That is Afton's plot armor working overtime with no extra pay. And at 6, leave it to fate. FNAF 6 was supposed to be the end of the Afton story. I was so looking forward to it. That's what Henry sets out to do in this game. Make sure that nobody remembered what happened there. However, this also figured that the first fire didn't work, so a second one surely will. And in fact, he was so confident in this plan for whatever goddamn reason that he actually let himself die in the process to leave nobody remembering what happened. But he didn't think that even if himself, William, and all their kids are dead, the parents of the victims still know. And as we learned from Security Breach in the duffel bags, there are other parents who remember it too. Like, it's a whole thing in the FNAF universe. They cite the missing children from the Pizzaplexes happening again. If Henry had stuck around to see if the job was really done, maybe William wouldn't have been able to possess Vanny and come back yet again and just kill more people. Henry should have lit the place up, smashed everything that survived, and then maybe you could have offed yourself. But at least make sure the job is done first. Halfway through into number 5, worst Easter ever. Okay, from an in-universe perspective, in Security Breach, Vanny brought back seemingly this Earth's most prolific killer. But from a story perspective, it also kinda comes out of nowhere and feels forced. And in a game sense, he also just looks terrifying and then sends all the broken animatronics after us. And lore-wise, Afton's back again. However, he's also not entirely back this time, considering how this version actually seems to finally be dead, however only functional because maybe the coded version of Afton's consciousness is inside the animatronic. No matter what, this shouldn't have worked. He shouldn't have been able to have a sentient code form possessed Vanny, but then also be able to be present in his actual body. Like what? Unless this entire time after getting Springlocked, his consciousness was instantly turned into a code, and that was then controlling the Springtrap suit. And in a way, I guess, would make sense. I mean, it would make a lot more sense than him being possessed by the spirit of his son. But from everything we've gotten, including Ultimate Custom Night and the man in room 1280, he was possessed, but to be kept alive so he could keep suffering, okay? Meaning that none of this should have worked, but it did. Getting close to the end, and in number 3, the Afton ending. Okay, well, if you don't want to have the whole security breach game be a VHS, okay, how about the canon ending, or the Afton ending as some call it. The canon ending to this game is some of the most insane luck that Gregory experiences in his whole time at the Pizzaplex. This sort of thing is like catnip for these types of videos. I mean, when have you like looked at one of these or like watched a found footage thing and thought, wow, this is so unlucky? Never. Okay, they always somehow end up having like lucky thing after lucky thing happen to them. So let's take us falling into the room and then fighting off these robots. Just make it a damn VHS tape. Since honestly, trying to do the whole of Security Breach may be a little more ambitious than most people could reasonably expect, but that's just kind of the person I am, though. I end up thinking of cool things after cool things, so then I add them to the project, and then it inevitably becomes too ambitious that now it seems like a mountain I have to climb, so I give up. But then I also don't want to make the mountain smaller because all of these things would be so cool and I've already thought about them and want to include them. So yeah, it's happened with literally every project that I've had in mind, and it sucks. So how about this one, we just cut it down to the Afton ending? Is that better for anyone who can actually animate and do it properly? I hope so. Penultimately, in at number 2, the Claw. Elizabeth Afton getting grabbed by Baby is one of the most terrifying moments in the series. Possibly because Crying Child might have seen it, which would explain the mouths on the nightmare animatronic stomachs. However, if we were to see a tape of this moment from Crying Child's perspective, whether that detail be canon or not, oh my freaking god, that would be so utterly terrifying that we may actually, like, I might actually freeze, okay? I don't know how to explain why a kid hiding in the bushes while his sister is grabbed by an animatronic claw while trying to get ice cream would be so shocking and horrible, except for how I just did it. But like, especially considering that this kid ends up turning into an absolute psychopath after this, and by that I mean Elizabeth, not Crying Child, but like, still, okay? The found footage that's like of someone hiding for some reason is always scarier than someone who's in the middle of the action, because I feel like it's, if you're hiding, you can point the camera at the scene, but if you're filming it and you're in the action, you're just filming your feet as you run away, because you know you're focused on running away, not filming it. Plus, like, in general, this is just a f***ed up thing to watch happen, be it in person or on video. And finally, in at number 1, scoopening. Okay, now, I know that you may be mad and may think that this is a stupid point, but hear me out, okay? The scooper may seem like a weird but normal thing, at least by FNAF standards at first, but like with the blueprint revealing how this thing actually works, seeing this in third person from found footage would be absolutely atrocious. This thing can inject whatever it ends up scooping with Remnant, which is a molten metal possessed by souls, and it keeps a person alive after removing their insides, replacing it with robot parts, and then having those robot parts leave that body. In essence, just making that person a walking case of flesh. Do you really want to watch that happen from a security camera? Or even just watch it happen to someone else, okay? No. In Sister Location, we see it in first person, okay? All we see is just basically like a mighty machine digging into our body. But like from the outside looking at Michael, we would see so much more. And if it's from Ennard's perspective, it would only be worse.